Trafimow is going to be presenting here in a few weeks. He doesn't know it yet, but he's a good friend, and I'm going to call on him. And I've got videos of him online you can find anyway. And he's creating a revolutionary thing in statistics. It's the Copernican revolution, where David Trafimow is challenging the mean as the only way to do your estimates, and wants to do positioning in a population. That's what I'm doing in this approach to socioeconomic OD, is positioning where this is coming from in a distribution. I want to know the mean of the average of people's stupidity or the average of people's emotion. What good is that? I don't want to know averages. Averages is bullshit. I want to know what's their position in the whole distribution of the phenomenon. And that's where we get David Trafimow. He's also challenging null hypothesis. And I was embarrassed to go to dissertation presentations over the summer where students were still developing null hypothesis. Are you kidding me? Null hypothesis has been out the door for 10 years. We don't do null hypothesis anymore. And David Trafimow has proved why we don't do that. And the third thing David Trafimow does is he does away with the p-value. I don't know how many hundred dissertations I've read where people said, because the p-value is 0.05, this is a significant research. No, it's not. You haven't explained anything about the statistics underlying your approach, you know? So I get kind of passionate about this, but I think there's a revolution, and I want to be on the cutting edge. I don't want to be behind the curve doing dumb statistics in dumb ways that are done in dumb dissertations, you know? And I don't want to dumb down the consulting either. So anyway.
Yeah, I have a question. Have you found those, the analysis that you do varies, the results vary among, say, different departments or different levels of management?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to know the positioning of the phenomenon in the organization.
Oh, okay.
And within the department too, you have to know where does that shift in quantification come from? You have to be able to identify. Really good dissertations, qualitative dissertations, will know when they're done. And Grace Ann and I have been on these committees. They will know which person is moving which direction at which stage of the dissertation as opposed to another person. It's very, very precise work at a qualitative work level. But in a quantitative level, we say, well, how often does that occur? It's basics, knowledge of sampling too. Are you sampling in your qualitative work one piece of the organization and extrapolating that on the whole thing? Very bad behavior. Or are you sampling different times of the day, different parts of the organization in a big system? You can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, before or after lunch.
Yeah, and David Trafimow, I could go on and on about David Trafimow, but he does a methodology of constructing the sample, but it's not the usual way where you have to know the standard deviation of the population. You figure out, well, what level of confidence do I want that this procedure will be accurate? So, for example, if you're a medical doctor, David's father's a medical doctor, and they've written work together. You want to be really darn confident, not a 0.05 level, but you want to be really confident of the risk you're taking in an operation and what level of success you can take with that operation. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of fuzzy statistics out there that I think your book on organizational intelligence and your background in information systems is very well, you're very well qualified to do this work.
Thank you. I wanted to point out too that David is beautiful Sabine's husband. So
the other
smiling
David.
every day. That's David Trafimow. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm still married to Grace Ann. So hey,
sorry about that. Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to hear from you.
So last week, I went through what we call the crisis of representation. So what I mean by that, it is one positivist scholar, when I was in a meeting in a methodology, I told him that I'm going to do ethnography. He started to laugh.
I don't know why he's laughing. It's done well. There's nothing can beat it.
Yeah, and he told me, yes, but it is all about generality and things like that. But I told him, listen, having an engineering background. And I said, let's carry on the debate. Okay. I said, but you using statistic. First of all, statistic is not mathematics. We use mathematics to understand statistics. But I said, but when you start with your hypothesis, which is bias, so even your statistic will be biased. So why people still perceive that qualitative research is biased as well? People doing a positivist, if they've got only one true, they could not understand what does it mean to have multiple true. So it is what I would like
Sure.
to hear about you, because this kind
Sure.
of things, I believe I'm going through that
Now,
many times.
one of my last presentations at the Academy of Management was a ballroom presentation on Disney. As I said, I'm a Disney researcher and I've written a lot about it. And I was there with John Van Manen. And John Van Manen is probably the most eminent, respected scholar in the world on doing the ethnography work. And he will tell you just what I said. You have to sample your people. You have to sample the time and the spaces you're in. You can't just go in there and sort of grab the first few people and think you're getting the story of the organization. That's just idiocy. The first people that invite you in are probably the people telling you the most distorted and biased thing of that organization. And that's why it takes a lot of skill as an ethnographer. Now, how do I know this? Because I taught ethnography at UCLA. And why I didn't teach it to management students, because they wouldn't take the course. They were too busy doing statistics. So all the students I had were anthropology students. So here I am teaching anthropology as a organizational development professor at UCLA to anthropology students. But I learned so much about the finesse of this methodology. And to this day, I've never seen better work than those anthropology students did. They would go into an organization, they wouldn't pop a whole bunch of questions at you. They would memorize them in their mind, and they would look for a time to do what Grace Ann and I do in conversational storytelling, to bring it up in a conversation. It was not this kind of, I'm going to interrogate you about structural contingency. No, there was like none of that. It was becoming a member of the organization. It was becoming a participant. And you knew you were doing the good work if you could predict behavior. In other words, if you had interviewed a bunch of people and transcribed your stuff and did your notes, and then you went back in the field and you could predict what was going to go down that day and what the themes were going to be, you were a good ethnographer. You know what I'm saying? That's not the qualitative research that's being done in management studies today. It's nothing near that. It's like 0.1% of the excellence of the ethnography of a John Van Manen, you know? Oh, that's the level of rigor that I expect in my students. Yeah, Sabine.
Thank you very much.
Sabine, you're on mute.
Sabine is talking about David Trafimow now. You can tell because she's smiling.
David, I love what you are doing now, is that you are using science as a foundation. I think you are really building, and I like the idea of, the foundation, and you're really building up a scientific foundation, from the ground up, as you put it. And I really love that. I think that is really beautiful work. And, thank you for talking about David. I love that when you said he doesn't know it yet. Well, okay, you're gonna have to.
I'm hoping you'll tell him.
I will tell him, and you can also tell him, and that I hope he can schedule that so that there is a presentation by David. He
Oh, yeah.
just got back from Scotland. So in any case, I will tell him, David, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And there's a chapter on him in the book. And he has already agreed. Now that he's back from Scotland, he's going to write the review of the chapter, and I'll get some edits, and will be really good. I'm going to turn to Harvey. And Harvey, I don't know if I was clear about the importance of axiogenics as a pillar in our work, but thank you. Harvey.
Oh, great for that. So just two things. First, I just want to thank you for bringing everybody together and being so supportive of all of us wherever we're at and whatever we're doing. It's a very comforting, very welcoming place that you create. And I just want to thank you for that.